Yes, sir.
All right. Now, I cannot stress this enough how much of a backlog we have when it comes to training people to listen. Because we haven't trained people to listen. We have trained people to write, we have trained people to read. From an English language perspective, we have trained people to speak. And there's also another side to it that in the Indian context, especially over the last 10-15 years, suddenly everyone wants to become a very good public speaker. We are a country obsessed with this language, which I can understand. I understand. But even then, what most people do not understand is, and what for some, because listening as a skill and the fact that it needs to be taught from a very early age, and people need to be trained how to listen, these are relatively new concepts. Right? People are now talking about it. Some of the best schools in the country have come up with language labs and they're actually trying to train their students to listen. Because they realize they do not have the ability. We do not have the ability to listen to people. And I'll give you very small, very raw examples, if I may. Most of our knowledge of breakups, for example, comes, how we deal with breakups, generally, people, right? Guys deal with it in a particular way, females deal with it in a particular way, and that is the only difference. Most people across the globe now, we have pretty much the same things we do after people break up with each other. Right? The only difference is gender based, and it's there throughout the world. Our first knowledge as Indians actually how to deal with breakups and what is the accepted norm now, it generally comes from Friends, right? That revolution came 15-20 years ago, and ever since pretty much people do the same kinds of things while they're breaking up, right? Because I'm a guy, I'll just take it from a guy's perspective. No offense, I have the utmost respect for the female gender, but it would be hard for me. It would be impossible for me to assume anything on behalf of the other gender. So I'll just give you an example from a guy's perspective. Now let's say a guy has a breakup, right? So what is the next obvious thing to do? What do people do? For the next 3-4 days, it is a norm that that person is not going to pick up any calls from his friends. He's not going to pick up any call from anywhere, right? These next 2-3 days are dedicated to complete isolation, being sad alone. That is the start of it all. And believe me, it is pretty much the same norm across the world. That guy, he knows friends are worried about him because some of the friends always know that, someone has been dumped or someone has dumped someone else. So obviously, my best friend is worried, my friends are worried, they're calling me. I'm not responding to texts, I'm not taking people's calls, right? I'm not doing any of those things. But I'm charging my phone. It's not that my phone is switched off at any point. I am charging my phone. Phone is fine, it's working fine, I'm refraining from social media, I'm refraining talking to anyone. Maybe I could not help myself, I saw some of the text messages, did not respond. That allows me to stay in the character. आपको याद है जब बच्चा रोना शुरू करता है, छोटा बच्चा, when he wants something from the market and he starts crying, if he gets it for the first time, he makes it a habit then. Right? Children do that. It's proven, yes?
Yes.
Alright. Now, अब आप character नहीं छोड़ सकते, तो हमें character नहीं छोड़ना है. Because these are things that everybody has to go through. Now the next step is 3 दिन जब आपने बिना नहाए बिना कपड़े बदले अपने घर पे अपने रूम में निकाल दिए हैं, and you've been sad probably ordering pizzas all weekend. Now the next logical step is to include another party, and that is generally people's best friend. So if you have a best friend and who has been going crazy for the last 3 days, obviously you give him or give her a call then, and you're like, first she'll shout at you for 5-10 minutes because you've not been picking up, because you've been acting like a jerk, etc., etc. And then you would decide, fine, let's meet up there, let's have a cup of coffee, and then I'll spill it all out, because eventually we do need human beings. So my idea is, अब बहुत हो गया है, अब मैं सब जाके कहीं निकालता हूँ किसी के सामने, right? Healing anyway. No one tells you what to do after a breakup. No one tells you, no subject, no teacher, no wife, no husband, no parent ever tells their children what to do if you lose someone. It can be a breakup, it can be someone's death. So we're all left to find out our own ways of doing it, right? And we all do. Eventually all of us do. The thing with, I'm not ridiculing breakups for 1 second, because I know how hurtful it is in certain cases for certain people. So I'm not making fun on its expense. I'm just trying to tell you a different sort of a narrative. Now you reach that place after 3-4 days, and you start talking to your friend, and she's like, हाँ हर्ष, come on, tell me about what happened. Oh my god, मुझे तो लगा सब बहुत अच्छा चल रहा था. Right? That is the general reaction. And then you you gather enough courage after a cup of coffee or a half cup of coffee or a coffee that's just been sitting there for 30 minutes. And then you start talking to your friend, and because you've been trying to do a lot of introspection, because you're hurt, because you've identified certain things that were probably wrong with you in the first place. And you start talking about just one or two of those things. People listen to you for 5 minutes, and then they start telling you, don't worry, I also had a breakup a couple of years ago, you'll be fine. People culturally, I don't know, maybe I'm living in a different world, but all around us, I see people, we've confused the concept of consoling people with telling them a common story of a common pain from their past. Do you understand what I'm trying to tell you?
Yes.
And in that attempt, and people have gone, oh my god, that is how we think we are able to help other people. But obviously it's not true. And obviously psychology and science is very clear on it. That is not how you help or console people. And we are a very closely knit communities. We are culturally very aware of what is happening around us. India. And even then, oh my god, the one experience that I have had in my life, the second, third day onwards, a lot of people came to see me, a lot of people came to meet my family. And the second, third day onwards, I started realizing I have met 500 people in the last 3 days. Everyone has a common story, a similar story, their story or their friend's story or their cousin's story. So, because people would rather talk than listen, so I thought, okay, I'm a literature student, I've been all my life. So I started paying attention to the stories. And one, it's not possible that 500 people have a relatable incident, right? It's not possible. Two, because I'm a literature student, if you're telling me a story, I'll listen to it carefully. So you make sure that you're not lying to me, because if you get a little careless in the story, I'll figure out. And I did. On many occasions. What I realized was, I was not irritated by it. I was just a little sad, consistently disappointed with the society anyway. I was sad because I realized then that we have reached a point where it is so important for us to talk. And this is a result of that art. And one of the chief reasons responsible for it is that we have not trained our people to listen. And with technology and social media, everything that has happened in the world over the last 10 years, we've reached a point where everyone just wants to speak. We do not have listeners in the world. That is why there is so much noise. And when everyone speaks at the same time, you can't really make out a lot of the